Welcome into Sports Memo's betting podcast, February 20th, back-to-back podcast today. This one we're doing soccer and golf with our soccer and golf expert, Nick Borrman. Mick, welcome into the pod. How are you?
Hi, Drew. I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing good, man. We got what's the Premier League? We're talking EFL Cup Final, Bundesliga. We got PGA Tour. Is the PGA Tour in Mexico?
Yeah, they're in Mexico this week. Yep.
Cool, man. What changes when you go south of the border as far as PGA Tour betting, just kind of from a glimpse view?
Nothing really. It's the same tour, same format, same everything the guys are used to. Nothing changes from a betting perspective. This particular week, we'll talk about it later, but the course is this is only their third time playing at this particular course, so nuances to the players just not knowing the place, but other than that, it's the same as any other given week.
Okay. All right, cool. And we got the MLS, the Major League Soccer, the American soccer. It's starting in, just 10 days? And
Yeah, I just wanted to do a quick shout-out for that. And it starts 10 days next weekend. So next week when we get together, we'll do a season preview for the MLS. And we'll go over who we think is going to be the favorites to get this year. Atlanta United will have to defend their title, and we'll see. We'll go over all the teams and see what's what for this season. I'm excited for it.
Cool, man. Well, good to hear. Yeah, excited for that. We'll talk that next week. But first up, let's talk Premier League. We got Liverpool minus 0.25 at Manchester United. Total of 2.75. How would you look to bet this Premier League matchup?
Yeah, so this I wanted to cover this game. This is definitely the game of the week here in the Premier League, and really the season, the league has already pretty much come down to two teams, which is Liverpool and Manchester City. You could throw Tottenham in the mix as well. They're 5 points back right now, but really it's between Liverpool and Man City. So all eyes are going to be on this match and whether or not they can get a win here at Manchester United. So Liverpool's storied franchise in the Premier League, but they have not won the league title in 29 years, which is remarkable to hear. It's kind of compared to what if you didn't hear the Patriots had won the Super Bowl in 29 years. So they're one of the most storied franchises in the league, and they just have not won it in 29 years. So they're definitely going as hard as they can to get this title. Couple things I wanted to talk about before we even mention or really get into the breakdown of this game is how this time of year works with the schedule at the teams. So Liverpool, for example, and Manchester City are both in the Premier League, obviously, and they're both alive in the Champions League right now, which is going on midweek. Liverpool actually played yesterday. They drew 0-0 against Bayern Munich, and Man City plays today, actually, against Schalke. So they have multiple competitions going on. England also has two domestic cup tournaments as well. The FA Cup and the EFL Cup, which we're going to cover one of the matches in those later in the show. But so it's busy. Liverpool, they've been eliminated from both of the domestic cups, but Man City is alive in both. So you have Manchester City trying to navigate not only playing their league games, but three other tournaments as well, and Liverpool just navigating the league and the Champions League. So it's difficult for teams this time of year that are going deep into these tournaments because normally these guys are playing once a week. You know, they play their league games every weekend. And then you throw in midweek games for these cup matches, it becomes a pretty grueling schedule where you have teams playing every 3 to 4 days for extended periods of time. I mean, you're talking 2, 3, sometimes 4 weeks in a row where they're playing 2 or 3 matches a week. And I don't care who you are or what sport you're playing, and that adds up. Obviously, baseball is about the only sport where they can play every single day, and the guys are used to that. But think of an NFL team. You know, they talk a lot about Thursday games throw a big kink into the schedule and how teams play on short rest. And I know a lot of listeners out there may say, but it's soccer. But that just means you probably have never played soccer before because it's a very, very grueling sport, very physical sport, more so than you would think when you're watching it. But anyway, the whole point is that the schedule's become very difficult right now. Even the best conditioned players in the world, a schedule this demanding is tough, and it just wears you down over the course of the season. So the managers of these teams have to decide what they're prioritizing, and they got to rotate their squads effectively for different competitions. Like I said, Liverpool, they played Bayern yesterday, and now they play United on Saturday, which is 2 world-class clubs back-to-back, and they're going to need their best players in the field for both games. So how do you navigate your best guys week in, week out by doing that? And what you'll see over time is you'll see maybe Liverpool will play a weaker team in the Premier League instead of United this week. Well, you might see them rest some guys this weekend so they're ready for another battle next midweek. So anyway, busy time of year for these teams. It's very difficult to navigate through. And in this game coming up, we're definitely going to be seeing Liverpool at their brightest. They have to absolutely put all their eggs in a basket right now to win this Premier League. Jurgen Klopp, who's their manager, actually kind of hinted at the fact that, of course, anybody wants to win both the Premier League and the Champions League, but to be able to win the Premier League for Liverpool and their fans for as long as a drought as it's been for them is really the main priority right now for these guys. So if they fail in the Champions League, it won't be the end of the world for them. They've won the Champions League 5 times actually in their history, with the most recent one coming in 2005. So they're decorated more in the Champions League and more recently than they are in the Premier League. So fans are desperate for that Premier League win. Coaches, players are certainly desperate for it. So we're going to see them going all in to try to get the Premier League this year. And what works for them this week is the fact that after this United game, the schedule really, really eases up for them as far as who they're playing in the Premier League stretch. They'll be playing almost all the teams in the bottom of the table after United, with a couple home games, I believe, against Tottenham and Arsenal, is all that's left on the docket for them of any of the top 6 teams. So if they can make it through this game, right now they're tied with Man City for the exact same points. However, Man City played one more game. So if they can make it through this game and earn a win, they'll be up by 3 points. If they earn a draw, they'll be up by 1 point. And then at that point, it's going to be tough for City to close the gap, just because you're going to assume Liverpool is going to be able to, I don't want to say necessarily run the table, but they're going to have a good chance to put a lot of points up over the last 12 weeks of the season here. So Liverpool, I think we'll see them at their best. They have just one league loss this season. That was actually at Man City back on January 3rd. These two teams, United and Liverpool, when they played earlier this year, Liverpool just absolutely dominated the game. They won 3-1. At home back in December, and that was the last match before United fired their manager Jose Mourinho, and now they do look like another team with their new manager Solskjaer so far. They've gone 11 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss in all competitions since they changed managers. So their players have rallied around. It's like a whole new vibe. I mean, I've been reading stuff for the last few weeks just about the vibe in the clubhouse, the confidence from the players. There was just this big dark shadow over the team when Mourinho was there. So it's been very positive for the team since they fired the manager. But when you kind of look at the opponents they've played and the quality of those teams, they've gotten a lot of wins, but really they haven't played a lot of good teams. The only teams they played, they won 1-0 at Tottenham in the Premier League, but Tottenham absolutely dominated them in the second half. And United is very lucky, if not for a remarkable game by their keeper De Gea. They're very lucky to have even won that game. They very easily could have lost. They also won 3-1 at Arsenal in an FA Cup match, and then they lost against Paris Saint-Germain last week in the Champions League 0-2. So all the rest of the games that they've had have been against low-level competition. So it's still tough to get a read on these guys against the better teams out there. But when they did play against Tottenham and when they did play against PSG, they were exposed and kind of showed their opponents where their weaknesses are, which is still defensively. They still leave a lot of holes on the defensive side of the ball, and teams are going to exploit that. Tottenham was unlucky not to be able to. Paris Saint-Germain was able to, and they kind of put a tactical game together that really showed. I'm sure Liverpool's watched the tape, and I'm sure any other team that's about to play United in the next few weeks has watched that tape and showed kind of how to attack these guys. So the big question mark here is just how does Liverpool play at Old Trafford, which is United Stadium. Liverpool, as good as they've been at home this year, they just have not been great on the road. They've only had one big road win this year, and that was in September. They won 2-1 at Tottenham, but since then they had a 1-1 draw at Chelsea, 1-1 draw at Arsenal. They lost all 3 of their road games in the Champions League. And they subsequently have just one win in their last 3 road matches overall. They lost 1-2 at Man City, 1-2 at the Wolves, and during that Wolves game, that was actually an FA Cup match, and they had their squad rotated during that match, so that kind of ties back into what we first talked about how managers rotate their teams and what they're prioritizing right now. But their last road match, they had a 1-1 draw at West Ham, who's mid-table team and not that good this year. So they struggle away from home. They are going to, it's hard to get a true read on who's going to show up here. Is Liverpool going to come and play like we'd expect them to play week in, week out, and be able to earn a win at United, or is United going to show up and be able to play the way they've been playing under their new manager? Both teams are good. They both have great offenses. Liverpool definitely has the edge defensively, but I just don't know if it'll be quite there. So I think the under is the way to go on this one, Drew. A lot of these games with the better teams have been low scoring, and I think United is going to be able to limit Liverpool and vice versa. So I think we're going to be looking at under on this one, Drew. It's 2.75 right now. I think we may see some threes pop up on the board in the next few days, so I'm going to wait. And if they do, definitely make under 3 a play, but it's still a good price to take it at 2.75 right now.
All right, Nick. And next game up, we got EFL Cup Final. EFL, what does that stand for?
It's the English Football League.
So it's not the Premier League?
No, so this is what the 2 domestic cups that go on besides the Premier League. This is what I was talking about in the last one. This is one of those, and this is their final match. So this is just another cup match that goes on, not the Premier League.
Okay. Manchester City -1 versus Chelsea, total of 2.75.
Yep, so this is the final, being played at a neutral site. They're playing at Wembley Stadium, which is important to note, as City beat Chelsea 2-0 back in August. At Wembley Stadium. They play it's called the Community Shield match. It's like the opening kickoff to the new season, where the previous league winner and the previous FA Cup winner play a match against each other. Anyway, so these two teams played back at Wembley, same field, with City winning 2-0 against Chelsea. Chelsea, they're desperate to win this cup. They were eliminated by United on Monday in the FA Cup, and they've now fallen down to 6th spot in the Premier League. So they're looking at possibly not even getting a Champions League or Europa League qualification for next year. So if they want any chance at salvaging their year, they need to win a trophy and win some sort of a tournament. And this is their last chance. They're here. They're in the final this year. They are still alive in the Europa League. But they got a long way to go to navigate that right now. So this is priority number 1 for these guys. But in my opinion, this is Man City's game to lose. They have as easy as a Champions League match as you can have this week, playing Schalke. So they shouldn't expend too much energy today, actually, when they play, before they turn around for this game on Sunday. They're much better, much deeper than Chelsea, and I see them winning this game rather easily, meaning at the -1 number, the worst case is probably a push in the spread, but I can see them certainly winning by 2 goals. Chelsea handed Man City their first loss of the season back in December at Chelsea, which led to a run of 3 losses in the Premier League for City that ultimately saw them lose the top spot to Liverpool. City then rebounded with a 6-0 win against Chelsea just last weekend. So I obviously don't expect to see that scoreline again, but I can certainly see a 2-0 or 3-0 win from City here in this game. 4 of the last 5 meetings between the teams, City has won all to 0, with the 0-2 loss earlier this year, the only exception. So City knows how to beat Chelsea. They've won 4 out of the 5, holding them scoreless, and I think they have a good chance to do that again in this game. The Blues, who is Chelsea's nickname, they've lost their last 3, or excuse me, they have 3 losses in their last 5 games overall. And they lost, one of those losses was 0-4 at Bournemouth back on January 30th, which is a real bad loss. Their 2 wins during that time frame were against bottom of the table Huddersfield, and they had a 5-0 win. That was winning 5-0, and they also had a win against Malmo in the Europa League, which is Malmo is a team from Sweden, and obviously a lot weaker competition over there than they are in the Premier League. So Chelsea, they're struggling away from home. I know this isn't a game at City, but it's still another road game where it's not at their place, Stamford Bridge. So I think City is going to be all over these guys this game. Sergio Aguero is playing just absolutely remarkable for City right now. He had a hat trick against Chelsea in that 6-0 win, and he's got 9 goals in his last 6 games. And he's complemented with any combination of, you got Raheem Sterling, Gabriel Jesus, Leroy Sané. All these guys can just score goals with the best of them, and they're one of the scariest teams to face in any league. So I think the champion, even though they're playing a Champions League match today, I don't think that's going to have a huge impact on their scheduling for this weekend. And I think City -1 is the way to play this. I see the line moving to -1.25, so I recommend getting down on -1 now while you can. And this is my official free play this week. I have this analysis loaded up on the Sportsmemo page, but City -1 free play of the week here, Drew.
Okay, like in City, -1 for the free play. You can read more in-depth analysis from Nick at sportsmemo.com. We got Bundesliga soccer, Dortmund, who you were just talking about, versus Leverkusen, I believe. You can correct me, but either way, Dortmund -5 or -0.75. High total here, Nick, 3.25.
Yeah, the Bundesliga is known as more of a higher scoring league, so you see a lot of totals of 3, 3.25, 3.5 sometimes. But this is a huge matchup here in the standings. The reason I kind of wanted to go over this game is the fact that Dortmund, they currently lead the Bundesliga, and really all eyes are on them. Most teams are rooting for them. Bayern Munich is the 6-time defending champion of the Bundesliga. So really, it's that underdog story. Everybody wants to see somebody else win, and Dortmund's the team right now that is in position to do it. However, they've been stumbling. They've had 3 straight draws in the Bundesliga, and that's allowed Bayern to climb back in it, and now they only trail by 3 points, and they were down by as many as 9 points earlier this season, so they've really closed the gap. The pressure is squarely on Dortmund right now, and they're really kind of just not playing well with this pressure on them. They're actually winless in their last 5 games overall. Besides those 3 draws in the Bundesliga, they had a domestic cup loss, and they had a brutal 0-3 loss at Tottenham last week in the Champions League. So they're not playing well right now. You can see that the pressure is kind of getting to them. Earlier in the season, they were just killing teams. They were winning 5-1, 4-1. They had a game where they won 7-0. I mean, it was easy in the beginning of the season. There was nothing to lose, I guess you could say. They had no bullseye on their back and no pressure, but they seem to be stumbling here down the home stretch of the season. So I'm rooting for them. I want to see them end that reign for Bayern Munich, but they're not in good form right now. Leverkusen, they're going to be a tough matchup. They're the youngest team in the Bundesliga, but they're getting better every single game. They started the season very slowly, as you would expect pretty much any young team to do, but they rebounded with they have just 7 losses in all competitions in 28 matches since the beginning of the season, where they lost their first 3 games. So they've really been playing well lately. They actually beat Bayern Munich 3-1 just 3 weeks ago, and they looked great in the second half of that game, completely outplaying Bayern with a much better tactical approach in that game. So, this is a tale of 2 teams heading in opposite directions right now, even though if you look at the standings, you would think Dortmund should be able to win this game. Dortmund did beat Leverkusen 4-2 back in September. But again, that was a long time ago, and current form suggests that Leverkusen is the play here. You can either get them at +0.5 or +0.75 if you play a little bit more on the juice around like -120, -125. So I think that's the way to play this game. Unfortunately, my head says I think that Dortmund stumbles down the stretch here and lets Bayern come back and win their 7th league title, although I'm rooting against it. I hope Dortmund can hang on and end that run, but I think Bayern's going to overtake them. They look better, they're playing better, and I think Leverkusen here in this game is probably going to at least earn a draw. They have a good chance to win, but probably earn a draw and take them +5 or +0.75 here in this game, Drew.
All right, Nick, good stuff, man, and that does it for the soccer breakdown. We'll get on to PGA, and guys, check out Nick's plays here. He's 89-70. That's 56% long-term in soccer best bets. That's the 4- and 5-star percent plays up at sportsmemo.com. Also, his last 17, he's hit a hot streak here, 14-3. That's up over 80% over his last 17 best bets. All PGA Tour golf picks, which we're about to talk about, 43-25. That's 63% on any PGA Tour pick that he has released. He has his PGA Tour WGC Mexico Championship 5-pack up at sportsmemo.com, and that's just for $30. And also with the coupon code NICK10, you can take an extra $10 off. That's the special coupon code for the podcast. That's NICK10 10 at checkout for his PGA Tour WGC Mexico Championship 5-pack here, Nick. And do you want to have at it as far as the PGA Tour heads south of the border? And how would you look to bet this tour stop here?
Yeah, so this week the guys are going to Mexico, World Golf Championship. So you see a handful of these events each year. This is they have just the limited fields in these events. So it's top 72 players in the world are only invited to these events. So subsequently to this event, there's another event going on in Puerto Rico for the players that are outside the top 72. So we're only going to focus on this Mexico event this week, where I said like you got the best players in the world playing here. And because there's only 72 players, there's no cut this week. So if guys get off to a bad start, they do have a chance to make up for it come round 3 or round 4, which is always something you got to consider in a normal event. If they start slow, they could be cut and not have a chance to come back. So no cut this week. Some things to note here on the course is this is just the third year they're going to be playing the particular golf course here, which is the Club de Golf Chapultepec, I believe is how you pronounce it. So I'm not too familiar with the course. I've obviously never played there, but did a little research on it. And the guys like it. The course sits 7,500 feet in elevation. So one adjustment the players have to make this week is distance. So what I'm seeing is that the balls are going to be flying 10 to 15% further than their normal distances. So anytime you're at elevation, the ball flies a lot further. We know that from NFL games and kicking field goals in Denver for example.
Where is it in Mexico?
It's on the peninsula, the Yucatan Peninsula. I don't know exactly what town it's in, but it's closer to the East Coast.
Okay.
So they're 7,500 feet, and we're playing some longer shots. You'll see some longer drives, but that kind of helps some of the shorter hitters out there and limit or kind of, I guess, takes the playing field and brings it more of a level playing field for everybody. Another nuance that they have here, they have very, very undulating greens. So players don't have a lot of experience at this course. There's only 23 players in the field that have actually played it both years. And there's 24 players in the field that have never played the course. So you don't have a lot of experience to work on in this golf course. So really a lot of what we're looking at this week is just current form and how the guys have been playing over the last month, 2 months or so, because, again, there's not a lot of history here at this particular course that you can feed off of. Weather this week looks great. There's some moderate winds at times, but otherwise no rain is a threat this week, which was a huge factor last week where the first day was kind of rained out, and then the guys were playing, 27 holes or a random number almost every day to try to make up for it, and that really threw off some people last week. But Mickelson, he's a defending champ here. He won last year in a playoff over Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas just lost a heartbreaker last week. He had a 4-shot lead going into the final round and played terrible in the last round. So BC, I wouldn't be surprised to see a slow start from him. Just kind of as a hangover from that failed last week. And I think he'll probably finish a little lower than what we're accustomed to seeing from him. So I'm avoiding Justin Thomas this week. But some players I like are Gary Woodland. He's been playing great. He has actually the longest cut streak on the tour right now at 19. And I just want to put that in perspective of how great Tiger was in his heyday. So Gary Woodland leads the PGA Tour right now with 19 straight cuts made. Tiger Woods has the record of 141 consecutive cuts made back in the early 2000s. So completely different animal than what that guy ever did. But anyway, Gary Woodland, he's hot right now. And he's known as one of the longest guys on tour. And this course has 2 par 5s that measure over 620 yards. So he'll be one of a few guys that actually have a legitimate chance of reaching those 2 holes in 2 shots and going for eagle. Rory McIlroy has been playing great and really quietly. Nobody's really been talking about him, but he's played 3 events in 2019 so far, and he's finished tied for 4th, tied for 5th, and tied for 4th. He finished tied for 7th here 2 years ago, and he led after 36 holes. So he didn't play here last year, but he's got a little bit of knowledge on the course. But really, he's just been playing great the last few weeks. And then John Rahm is one more player who's consistently posting top 10s, as he did again last week. He's actually now posted 7 consecutive top 10s, and he's got 1 win on the year. So he's another guy just playing great, and he finished tied for 3rd here 2 years ago. So those are some guys I like this week. Tiger's back in the field again this week, and this week. Last week I was kind of not expecting a lot from him. It was a course he doesn't really like that much, but he did pretty well. And he looks to be playing pretty well. He had a ton of bogeys last week. He had 14 bogeys, but he also had 14 birdies and 3 eagles. So if he could just clean up some of his mistakes, he would be a contender. And I think he's got a good chance to have a good week here. And then the last thing I'll say here for this week is it's another week I'm going to avoid Jordan Spieth. I correctly picked against him in one of my plays last week. He started off, as he has the last 3 tournaments, with a great score. I think it was 7 under par after the first round. He shot 81, which is 10 over par on Sunday on the final round, which is unheard of for these tour guys. So it was actually his worst career start on the PGA Tour. So his kind of MO right now has been a hot start and then just terrible weekends. So again, he's going to be a guy that I'm not going to jump on this week. I've been fading him consistently over the last few weeks, but the markets seem to have finally adjusted for that and for his current play. We were getting him plus money the last couple of weeks. He's now Paul Casey is who he's facing this week in the head-to-head matchup, and Paul Casey's minus 150 to beat Spieth. So the markets seem to have adjusted for it. So I think a lot of the value has gone on fading Spieth, unfortunately. So we have to find that next guy to try to fade, but. That's kind of the field this week and what I'm expecting from down in Mexico, but I'm excited to watch it. I don't know a lot about this course. I don't remember watching it last year, and I don't remember really any of the holes. So it'd be a good experience for me to watch it this week and try to get an understanding of what these guys are playing on this week. And maybe one day I'll get down to Mexico and play there.
Yeah, Nick, I'm just doing a little research here on it, and it looks like Mexico City, Mexico. Does that sound right?
Mexico City, yep, okay. Yep.
Okay, and that would make sense with
the city, I'm thinking.
What's that?
So I'm thinking it's probably just outside the city.
Yeah, and that makes sense with the elevation, the ball traveling further in Mexico City, because I believe it's the highest elevation that an NFL game is. I believe it's higher than Denver.
It is, yeah. Denver's mile high, so that's probably only around 5,500 feet. This is 7,500, so it'll be an adjustment for these guys for sure. It'll be fun to watch.
Yeah. So good stuff there with the PGA. And guys, remember his coupon code NICK10 at checkout for his 5-pack on the PGA Tour this weekend. So you can watch it, have some money on it there. It's south of the border. Should be a fun one to watch. Thanks, Nick, for the time. And guys, best of luck with your bets. We'll be back tomorrow talking basketball betting with Teddy Covers. Talk soon.